Straw Hut Media.
And wait, it's Sally Rooney? Is she the Normal People
yes,
writer?
Exactly.
Okay.
Same novelist and same creative team. All of it. We're involved in Normal People are involved in Conversations.
Welcome to another very special bonus episode of Only Murders in the Pod.
The show where we look behind the scenes and mine for clues as we meet the cast and creators of the Hulu original series, Only Murders in the Building. I'm your host, Elizabeth Keener.
I'm your host, Kevin Long.
Hi, KK.
Hi, Keener.
Hi, Maggie.
Hi.
What's going on?
I don't know. Why are we here?
We're here because we're in the final stretch.
Ooh.
Because Only Murders in the Building is returning for an all-new season on June 28th.
Oh, this is very exciting.
And even better, we return with an all-new podcast the next day,
That is
June 29th.
That is even better,
And
isn't
you know what? This season's starting a little bit earlier than last year because I think it started in August or September last season.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
KK, you are brilliant at
I
that.
know.
It's like an idiot savant, but, minus one of those.
And when shows premiere.
Shows premiere. You're right. So this one is going to be about a different murder in the building.
Yes, because we know Bunny's dead.
Bunny.
Poor
and
Bunny.
Poor Bunny. And she had the sweatshirt. Remember? She had the,
The tie-dye.
The tie-dye.
The tie-dye hoodie.
I was going to call it paisley, but maybe that's next season. Yeah.
People shouldn't wear those. They end up dead.
Yeah. So poor Bunny is gone. I mean, poor Bunny. Did we like Bunny?
No, she wasn't super nice.
She wasn't, right?
No.
And she was.
People didn't care for her.
No, and she was in everybody's business. And
Yeah. I don't wish death on anybody, but
me.
But there's another vacancy in Laconia.
Another vacancy. Very good. I like that.
Yeah.
That's like a song.
It's a nice building, but you could end up dead.
Just take your risk because it's a beautiful building.
I'm wondering if it's going to be winter again in the second season.
Isn't that a different
Interesting.
show? Winter is coming. That's a different show, isn't it?
Because it takes place right at the end of... It was winter. They were all wearing winter coats, and that's when Bunny's dead.
Yes.
So maybe it goes into springtime.
Oh.
we get a whole different outfit
Yeah.
range. That could be really fun. I hope we do get a
Steve
summer.
Martin in a bathing suit.
He'll be in a purple one because if it's the same colors that they had, the same tones they had last season.
Martin Short will have a really
Martin
good
Short will
one.
have
Yeah.
like a little purple Speedo. Oh, I'm hoping.
The options are endless.
Yes, they are.
We also know that Amy Schumer's going to be in season 2, I think, right?
Oh,
I heard
Amy
that.
Schumer. We love her.
Do we know who she will be playing or anything about her character yet?
I think she lives in the Arconia. I think that's all we know. But
I
I'm
wonder if
also
she's lived there the
not
whole
sure.
time or a new resident.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good-
question.
Yeah.
That's a really good question. I like that because, there's a lot of different. How many floors did we see? Did we see how many floors? At least
There's over 9, right?
there were a few, and we've only seen about maybe 10 different patrons. What are the guests?
Residents?
Oh, excuse me, residents. Yes,
Patrons?
maybe.
But back to murder.
Yeah, slap. Who cares?
Violent
Murder. Let's
murder.
talk about murder.
Wait, do you remember, how did Bunny die? Was she stabbed?
I think she had a knife in her chest.
It was a
Nice.
knitting needle.
Oh, knitting
Knitting
needle.
needle.
Oh,
Which Fable in the pilot was
Thanks,
knitting.
Maggie. Thank you for reminding us.
Yeah.
Because in her dream, exactly, she killed someone with a knitting needle. Ooh.
Huh.
So Amy Ryan, you think is going to be gone, or do you think she's
Well, she
gone?
should be in
She's out?
jail or a trial
Yeah,
or
she's-
something.
yeah,
but
something.
I bet she'll make an appearance,
I
right?
don't know. Wouldn't that be interesting? No.
No.
Or if someone went to visit her in jail. I mean,
Maybe it's like a Silence of the Lamb thing and they go to her to be like, who did it?
she's standing in her.
Yeah. I think it's Amy Schumer. I'm saying it right now.
Oh,
Calling it.
Yeah, it's always the. Well, did you ever see in all like older shows? It was always the special guest star who was always the one.
It's like Robert Goulet.
Oh, so Maggie, you want to tell us something that we should know about now?
Yeah, I mean, it's, as much as I love to just sit here and listen to you guys talk about Only Murders, I am here for a reason. I did come to share some exciting news.
We love you.
We
love you. Okay, go ahead.
Well, so we made another companion podcast for another Hulu show based on Sally Rooney's book, Conversations with Friends. And the full season is out. Different than Only Murders, Conversations released the entire 12-part series on one day. And so we did the same thing for our podcast. The next day we released all 12 episodes.
Oh my God.
I know. Wow. It was a lot. It was really a lot.
12?
Yes. And we worked with Hulu on this one, and we decided to make a companion podcast kind of unlike any companion podcast you've ever heard in your life, probably.
Wow.
So we do look behind the scenes, and we do talk to some of the cast and crew, but we also look at the thematic elements of the show, and we talk to experts and real people and get stories and kind of take a This American Life vibe to it so that it's a much more expansive
deep dive.
Wow.
Deep dive, exactly.
You put everything in a bowl, like you did everything that some like podcasts do. You put them all in one type of podcast.
Basically,
that's fantastic. Wow. That is exciting news.
12 episodes? I still can't believe that.
I know.
Wait, it's Sally Rooney? Is she the Normal People
Yes,
writer?
exactly.
Okay.
Same novelist and same creative team, all of it. We're involved in Normal People are involved in Conversations.
I read the Normal People book. It's very good. You should check it out.
Wow.
It is great. Also, Conversations with Friends is a great
Yes.
novel. It's Sally Rooney's
She's a great
first
writer.
novel. Yeah, she's fantastic.
And she's young, too. She's like 30-ish, I would say.
Something
She's doing
like that.
pretty well for herself.
She's doing the right thing.
She's in her 30s, I think.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting news,
Yeah.
Maggie. I can't even believe you're awake.
I know. Let me tell you.
Maggie?
Hello?
So this show, similarly to you guys in Only Murders, I hosted this with my good friend Noam. And she was actually the one who thought of like, wait, let's not just do a companion pod. Let's make it so much more expansive. Let's talk to real people. Let's talk to experts. Let's make it big. And so we did. We made it big.
Yeah.
And so if you listen to the show, you'll hear a lot of our cute little banter.
Yes,
which is
Maggie and Noam. Yes.
similar to the KK and Keener banter.
I love it.
I was thinking maybe if you guys will let me share here episode 1.
Can you give us 1 second?
Yeah,
Kina, what do you think of Okay, maybe she'll give us money.
Okay, yeah, sure. Oh, no.
We agree.
No second thoughts on that. Absolutely do it.
Sounds good.
So good. Thank you so much for your
You're
so much for your generosity.
You owe us a favor.
But seriously, we're very excited about it.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about the first one before you air it? Right
Okay.
now?
Yeah. Episode 1, we look at the question of, can you stay friends with an ex? Frances is the main character of Conversations with Friends, and she has a friendship. Her best friend is also her ex. And so that's kind of how we decided to open up the season. And so we talked to one of the producers on the show about some of the casting things. And then we also I tell a lot of personal stories on this podcast,
wow.
actually.
Nice.
Yeah. So I talk about a story about when I was in a band with an ex. For many years. And we hear from Lacey Mosley, who's an actress and comedian. She's on iCarly and Black Lady Sketch Show. She's hilarious. She shares a great story. And then we close out the episode with this Mediterranean scholar, Marguerite Johnson, who was so interesting. She told us about Sappho.
Yes.
the poet?
The Isle, of course. Yes,
Yeah,
the Isle of Lesbos. Yes. Who doesn't know that?
We had to go there. We had to go there, and it's really, really fascinating.
Yeah. Yes, the Isle of Lesbos. I'll be dreaming about that tonight.
Yeah. So basically every time we try to talk to, someone from Hulu, we try to hear a story, and we try to talk to an expert about something.
It sounds like it lends itself to get it very personal.
Oh,
Yeah.
it gets very personal. And, my mom is actually going to listen to it without having seen the show, because she's like, I don't have Hulu. And I was like, okay, Mom, we get you Hulu.
With ads.
We can get you Hulu with ads for sure. Send a couple of emails. But she's going to listen to it without watching the show. So I'll get a review on what it's like if you haven't seen the show soon. But
Is there anything you've said that you don't want your mother to hear?
Many
Oh,
things.
God.
That's what makes a
Now
good
I want to
podcast.
hear it right now.
But that's what makes a good podcast.
Yeah.
You say it anyway. You say anything and everything, which I keep trying to get KK to, come on, give me those things.
Quiet.
Give me those. I am trying to make you be quiet. And the first topic of, can you still be
Friends with your ex.
That's a big, great
I
topic.
think everyone can identify with that.
Yeah.
To some degree.
Tried.
Yeah.
Tried.
We've all tried. You know, I must just say it's interesting because I think that, I don't know why same-sex couples seems like they can be friends more than opposite-sex couples. I don't know why that is to me in my head, because I'm thinking of all my friends and all the guys kind of stay friends, or the women
And when
stay
we
friends.
dated and were married
Yes.
for 3 years.
What? Oh God, I blocked that out
Me
of my
too.
brain.
Talking to Maggie just brought that up again.
Jesus. No, it was fun for you. Okay, so anyway, it really is a really interesting topic.
Yeah.
I can't wait to listen to.
Yeah.
Well, here it is, episode 1.
Yay.
Media.
That's the situation. I'ma leave the door open, but it's actually gonna be mostly really close, like a little crack, just a sliver of a crack of a door open.
Welcome to Conversations with Friends and Strangers. I'm Maggie.
I'm Noam.
In this show, we take a closer look at the complicated relationships in the Hulu series Conversations with Friends.
We'll meet some of the cast and crew, chat with experts, and share our own kind of sexy, kind of uncomfortable, but relatable stories about the messy relationships we find ourselves in.
It's our very first show, and the question on our minds is it possible to stay friends with an ex?
We'll talk to producer Jeannie Igo about the process of casting the 4 main roles.
I love the casting, personally.
Me too. Then Maggie shares a story about her experience being in a band with an ex.
For years. Many years. After that, actress and comedian Lacey Mosley tells us the story of her longtime sex friend.
Now her non-sex friend, right?
Well, don't spoil anything, okay? And that fiery feeling of being in love, you know, the stuff they write poetry about, maybe that's why it's so hard to feel normal about an ex.
We'll talk to ancient Mediterranean scholar Marguerite Johnson about poetry and girl love, because there's actually a lot of poetry in this episode. Frances is a poet, after all.
But first, let's recap. Episode 1, we meet Frances and Bobby while they're sitting outside at Trinity College. The semester's ending and summertime is upon them.
They perform a feminist spoken word poem at a bar, and they meet Melissa, a well-known writer living in Dublin. We learn that Frances writes the poems and that she and Bobby used to date.
And a friendship buds between them. There's a dinner, and we meet Nick, Melissa's husband. He's tall, handsome, and an actor.
Something is clearly happening between them. An attraction, there's some flirting.
We also see Frances in pain from her period in this episode, but it's really bad pain. It doesn't seem normal. And Bobby takes care of her. It's really sweet.
It is. Later on, they have another poetry performance. This time, Nick is invited, and he shows up a little late, but the flirting definitely intensifies.
Oh yeah, very flirty. And that's episode 1 of the show.
So today, for our first episode, we'll talk a little bit more about poetry and crushes, but mostly we'll be trying to answer an age-old question.
Is it possible to maintain a healthy friendship with an ex?
Or a working relationship?
But first, a little look behind the scenes with someone from the creative team.
My name is Jeannie Igo, and I'm one of the producers on Conversations with Friends.
So when Hulu announced they were adapting Conversations with Friends into a series, I heard about the casting of Jemima Kirk first. And my initial thought was that, oh, she's definitely going to play Bobby. But actually, we're all old now. So, of course, she's Melissa.
Reality check. I'm not Frances anymore. I'm not 21 or 24. Jeannie had a similar realization.
Like, I was always thought of myself as Frances's age. And then I realized, no, I'm Melissa's age. And I'm going through the thing. And I'm like, no, wait. And I think a lot of my friends have gone through that too. Like, a lot of, like, people that love the book always see themselves as Frances. So to feel that they are then the older person in that story has been, and it's still very young, obviously.
But not as young as Frances and Bobby.
No, but let's talk quickly about the casting. We have Alison Oliver in her first ever on-screen role playing Frances.
Fresh out of drama school, but like crazy wise beyond her years. She just is like an old soul. Even the way she goes about the whole process, she's just really brilliant and kind of has this level of maturity that you don't really find very often with people when they're doing their first on-screen performance. Allison was such an amazing find.
She looks like a Sally Rooney character.
I agree. She's like pretty, but maybe a little bit mousy.
Mousy?
Yeah, mousy.
I see. Well, now I don't know. Yeah, a little. I can see that.
But with a big serving of sex.
Definitely can see that. She has some serious sexiness.
And Allison is the only Irish person that was cast in the 4 main roles.
There's Joe Alwyn, who is English.
He's English, yes. And as of this year, engaged to Taylor Swift.
Oh, really? Mazel tov.
You know, there's so much going on behind his eyes. Like, he's just gone through a really rough time. And then we're seeing little bits of it, but we only meet him in bits and pieces through, and we're very much kind of feeling him through France's perspective. So you're not kind of getting a lot. So to find someone who had that kind of emotional intelligence with Joe is incredible and like really, really special.
Jemima Kirk as Melissa is fantastic.
I just feel like she has this magic about her. I think as soon as we met her on Zoom, it was a very easy decision. And again, I kind of think when it comes to, where the cast were from, it kind of really happened quite organically. Like when we met the right person, and then we could kind of feel like, okay, well then they met in London and she was there, and that makes sense because she's quite a successful writer and just having this career over there, and has come to Ireland. That felt right. And the same with Sasha.
Yes, perhaps the biggest departure from the book, character-wise, the Americanization of Bobby Connolly with the casting of Sasha Lane.
I don't know if you've seen her in American Honey. I was lucky to work on the release of that film, but she is magic. She has something about her that you can't really quite describe, but like she breaks your heart, but she also just is completely dazzling, and she needs to be, and then again just has so much kind of depth to her.
I remember when the first press was coming out and I saw the casting, I was really surprised by Sasha Lane, and I was like, oh, that's going to be really interesting to see that, how they adjust Bobby's character to fit that. And then when I watched the show, I was like, oh my God, it's perfect. It works so well.
Yeah. So Sasha was cast first, and then afterwards they adapted Bobby's character's backstory.
Yeah, kind of. I think the Bobby character was the hardest character to cast. And it was also, you had to cast it before you could kind of cement the others around, because the 4 of them, like, it is such an ensemble, and they all have to work together. Like, you have to believe every dynamic of that relationship. All of it is so important and kind of so subtle. So I think finding her was like, we were all in, or myself, Catherine and Lenny, were all in Belfast and doing chemistry reads with Alison and some cast, and she came in and all of us just like lost our minds. Like, she just came in, she was Bobby, she just had this calmness to her, but kind of cute and quirky. No, I don't think quirky is probably the fair word to say, but like just kind of this like cute awkwardness to her. But then again, like, we were all enamored, and she just, like, you can't put words on that. You fit the story for that. When you find that character that fits right into that world, you can kind of make it all make sense pretty easily. Mm-hmm. And also still being very true to the character of Bobby.
We will talk about characters more throughout the season, but for now, let's circle back to the question we started with. Is it possible to stay friends with an ex?
We were fucking back then too, but we don't do that anymore. We dropped the fucking but kept the poetry.
That sounds like the wrong way round.
I know, right?
Are you friends with any of your exes, Noam?
Not really, not anymore. I was for a really long time friends with most of my exes, and I decided that maybe I need to break up with them at some point for our own mental health. So I think all in all, maybe I was a little strict with it now that I think of it, now that we're working on the podcast, but I'm not against it, but it's a very fine line between kind of leaving someone on the back burner and actually being friends with them.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point.
Thank you so much.
I also, when I was younger, felt like I was friends with most of my exes, and I wore it like a badge of honor. Like, I'm not a toxic person because I'm friends with all my exes or something like that. And I definitely was much more toxic as a young person, which you all listeners will learn throughout this season. So I have a story, actually, because I had a long time friendship and creative relationship with an ex for many years. And so I wanted to call in a dear friend and musical collaborator to help me tell the story.
I'm Michael. I live in Prague in the Czech Republic. I'm a photographer. I'm actually here doing my master's. I'm a very long time and close friend of Maggie and was the bass player in our band we had in college.
Freshman year of college, I was just starting to play guitar and write songs when I met, we'll call him Anthony. He offered to play cajon with me, which is a box drum, and through that collaborative process, I fell in love. We started a band with Michael on the bass, and total, I think we dated for maybe 6 months with a little summer breakup in between. The first breakup, his choice, the second one, my choice, and after that second breakup, he took a year off from the band. We had to find a new drummer. You'll hear about that a little bit in a later episode. And when he came back is when our friendship and creative partnership began in earnest. And I remember him being a bit jealous when I would date other guys in the beginning, mostly kind of just immature stuff, calling them boring or stupid, nothing too serious, at least for me. But then he started to act kind of weird. He was drinking really heavily and behaving erratically. Here's Michael.
Yeah, I think what I remember starting to notice was like, and I might be mixing this with memories from later when things had gotten quite a bit worse, but like, we're playing a show and he like is sort of like barking strange sounds from behind us, or like going off playing some weird little solo thing on his own that you're like, okay, I guess Anthony's just doing his thing again, but like, I don't know what this is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at that time early on, we kind of laughed it off as like, it's just quirky Anthony being weird.
Mm-hmm. But he ended up going into some kind of like delusion, and he was talking about the devil and the government spying on him, and it became super weird, and it became pretty clear that there was something serious happening. It wasn't just weird Anthony. We managed to maintain our creative relationship and our friendship for a while, until his mental illness surfaced. We ended up playing with Anthony for years after.
For years.
He was the main drummer in the band, and we never got back together romantically after that, but we did become really close friends. And, I feel like during that time, he was always managing his bipolar diagnosis and also trying to stay in a scene that was hyper reliant on drugs and alcohol. And that does
Which
not...
he was not supposed to be mixing with his medication. And
exactly.
You had to sort of babysit him.
I did a lot of babysitting over the years.
That. You were not supposed to be smoking that. And I can remember two episodes where he had to drop out of the band for a little while to recover, and they would get really weird again, where he's like looking at churches and talking about like, there's a lot of evil in that church. They're doing all these evil things in there. And we'd be like driving to a show and like, okay, I'm getting nervous because here we go again.
Yeah. And over the years, there was a lot of caretaking, I think, and babysitting, but I loved Anthony. I considered him one of my best friends. I talked to his mom with regularity for many years.
Where is he now? Do you know?
Well, so we stayed in contact, and then that year, 2015, he started dating someone, and he stopped answering my phone calls. He ghosted me, and he removed me from his Facebook, and I got really worried, obviously, because I was like, uh-oh, what's happening? So I called his mom and I said like, hey, I just want to check in on Anthony and make sure everything's okay. And she said, oh, he's got a new girlfriend and she's kind of possessive, but we really like her and we're really happy for him. And, I think she's just trying to manage who he's talking to. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to give this a little bit of time and hopefully he'll, reach out again. And then some time went by and he was going to get married, I heard. And I reached out again and I still didn't get anything. Or I guess pregnancy and marriage kind of came around the same time. Yeah. She was pregnant. They were going to have a baby. I reached out again and didn't have any response. And that was 2015. We haven't spoken since.
Yeah, I haven't talked to him at all.
Yeah.
Sounds like he's somewhere with some kids and a wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he's teaching. Anthony, I think, like, we watched him struggle a lot. And even if it sort of came at the cost of all of our friendships, I think there was a general relief that like his life had found some kind of stability in it.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, it was sad to lose the connection, but also I wanted the best for him, whatever that meant, whatever, unhealthiness there was between us in our former relationship, obviously was too much to move past, I think. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
But I wish him the best.
Yeah.
And he is a genius.
He is a musician unlike any I have ever met.
Mm-hmm. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, actor and comedian Lacey Mosley shares her own story about maintaining a friendship with an ex. Be right back.
Welcome back. Today we are trying to answer the age-old question, is it possible to maintain a healthy relationship with an ex?
Define healthy.
Honestly, great point.
I definitely still have some people in my life that might fall under the category of exes. Do I sleep with them? Some of them, yes. What about you?
I would say that I'm friendly with many of my exes. Like if I saw them, I would say hello. I'd say, how are you? Polite, friendly.
Cordial.
Still, follow many of them on Instagram or Facebook.
Is that a pink flag? That might be a pink flag.
But let's just say none of them are invited to my wedding.
We can talk about exes forever. I'm gonna attend a party with one next week, and let's see if anyone, like, if I'm gonna live, if he's gonna live, if his pregnant girlfriend's gonna live, who knows?
Yeah, we could talk about exes forever, but for now, let's listen to some of our conversation with Lacey Mosley.
Oh, she has a lot of things to say about that. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I took an edible last night. I feel like it's still there. And I'm like, all right. Okay, come back, brain. Hi, my name is Lacey Mosley. I'm an actor, comedian, podcast host of the show Scam Goddess, which is all about robbery, fraud, and all those who practice it. And I play Harper on iCarly, and I'm in season 2 of Black Lace Sketch Show.
Lacey's story is about as different as possible from Maggie's story in the first part of the show, but I think it says a lot about who we choose to spend time with, and also why.
We slept together for like 3 years. I wouldn't even say that we were dating, but we've always managed to like keep everything very cordial and like very professional, which is weird. I did one of his movies, and that's when we met. He was wearing these really, really tight pants, and I just thought, like, his pants are so tight. That's definitely big dick energy. Like, I'm curious, like, what's going on? And then, so, we started hanging out and hanging out, and it was fun. And we would still work together on projects, and like sometimes that would get a little tense if I was like mad at him, or sometimes he would like ignore my texts for like days. And then one time I just told him off about it because I was like, this is absolutely ridiculous. Like, you should want to be with me. I am a catch, and I definitely shouldn't be chasing after you. And I just basically drug him. And then I had to see him for the premiere of the short film that we did together. And so after that, I was like, oh, hey. And I was just kind of like, let it go. But he was like, I don't think you know, like, how mean to me you were in that text. And I was like, oh, no, I don't. I deleted the whole thread. And he was like, no. He like brought it up on his phone and like read it to me. And I was like, okay, I was really dragging you. You deserve it though. But yeah, sorry. But after that, we moved past it, and we're still friends.
So is that when the romantic part of that relationship ended though? Did it ever kind of rekindle, or?
Yeah, it rekindled. Mm-hmm. It rekindled when TMZ picked up the story about iCarly and whatever was happening with the racism. And I was just like really stressed out, and randomly I was like, can I come over? And it's not like I had been seeing or talking to him regularly, but I was like, can I come over? And he was so sweet, and he let me come over. And I had a really smart idea. I was really stressed out. I went to the liquor store, and I bought a tiny bottle of Grey Goose, and I drank it and then went inside.
Yes. I've been there.
And so we're on the couch and we're talking, and he just like wants to like know how I am and da da da. And I'm like, we could just, have sex. I need to just do something. And then, so we did. And then that tiny liquor bottle comes back into play because I ended up throwing up. Oh, no. He was like, make it to the bathroom. And I did it. I threw up on his floor.
Oh, no.
I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. It's so ghetto. And we cleaned it up, and then I fell asleep. But like, super great friend.
Good friend. Good friend.
Sounds like a place of trust, right? Like there's a mutual trust between each
I
other.
feel like
That's
there's
nice.
nothing like a good dramatic read of your text to clear the atmosphere and bring you two together.
Right. I was looking at this text like, it's not a big deal. He was like, oh, you don't remember them. I do. I was like, oh, okay, you're right.
Also sounds like that was like a point of communication that you guys needed to move past the,
Yeah, the tension. Because then it's like, look, everywhere you go and you see this person, you give them a church hug, but y'all are both mad. Mm-hmm. And then we moved past that tension, and I've been single for like 8 years. I tweeted yesterday. I was like, I quit. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was like, trying to find a partner takes a lot of work and energy, and you don't get paid. So I'm quitting. It's very ghetto. 0 out of 10 would not recommend. I did not realize that I had to have multiple jobs, and then love was also a facility that wants me to clock into. Like, what?
It's so time consuming. I'm also single, and I'm like, going on dates, and it's a waste of time, and you don't get your money back for all these like mediocre wine glasses and like all these people wasting your time. So I completely relate to that. So after that kind of falling out and then rekindling of the relationship, did you creatively work together again on a film or otherwise?
Not yet, but we kind of just orbit each other, so it's like, oh, you're working on this, and then I'll be working with the same people afterwards. So like Scotty Beam and Sylvo Bell came on my podcast, and they worked with him. And so we were like talking about him or whatever, but it's very positive. It's all good. I literally saw him on Sunday doing yoga in the park, and we all chatted for a minute, and like, it's not weird at all. I think it's probably also too because like, we were kind of just fucking, like it was 3 years long and we were friends, but we never like went out on dates. Mm-hmm. And at one point I was like, oh, maybe could be something serious. Like maybe this is the reason I'm not finding anything. And I talked to him about it, and he was like, because we were both in Chicago at the same time. And I was like, oh, pull up to my hotel. And he was like, no, I'm here with my friends. We're going here and there. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, we should talk about maybe getting to know each other and this not just being like animalistic and then goodbye. And neither of us felt bad about the situation that we had currently, but it was just like, well, maybe we are supposed to be together. And he was like, no, I don't think so, but I don't think this is a good conversation for text. Like, I'd really love to see you in person. And I was like, for what? You just said no. So what, I would come see it in person? Why would I go to a place with my body where somebody just go tell me all the things they don't like about me? Like, why would I subjugate myself to that? That feels abusive to me. Mm-hmm. So I was just like, okay, never mind. And then we're still cool. He has one friend that I have had a crush on for years, though. Mm-hmm. That I was like, can I do this? I don't want to mess up the friendship that we all have, because it's kind of a friend group. But I'm like, like still flirting with the idea.
Yeah. Do you think you'll go for it? Let's say, like, hypothetically, you guys are like all hanging out and you're feeling like a vibe from him. Would you ask your friend about it first and be like, hey, I'm like thinking about exploring this? Or would you just go for it and hope for the best?
Well, the thing is I kind of just was straightforward, which I don't think is a good tactic for talking to straight men. Very bad idea. So I was just like, we've had interest in each other for years, like all this flirting and whatever. And he was like, I know. And I was like, I'd be interested in exploring that. But I mean, we know that I was with Tristan for like 3.5 years, but I was never like really in a relationship with him. Like, we're friends. And he was like, oh yeah, I was just fucking. And I was like, sir, you don't gotta put it like that.
Only I can put it like that.
Okay, I'm very classy. Don't do me like that. But so he was like, "Yeah, I'm interested in getting to know you." And so over the past couple weeks, we've been texting and like, "Oh, what do you do?" Or "Oh, where do you live? Where are you going this weekend? What's your dad's name?" Blah blah blah. And it just felt like kind of dry to me because I was like, if you like me, like, why don't you ask me out on a date? Like, he's very busy and like sincerely is, and so am I. But I'm like, why are you not making no plans? I was like, you don't want me. You're not intentional at all. And that's when I decided to quit dating because I was like, I am not going to be out here chasing y'all.
Mm-hmm.
I have shit to do.
So it sounds like so this is like a recent like exploration that's happened, but maybe the door is like still ajar, maybe like it opened and then it kind of started to close, but it's not fully closed is kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that's the situation.
Yeah,
I'm like, need a door open, but it's actually gonna be mostly really closed, like a little crack, just a sliver of a crack of a door open. Yeah.
Do you think that there's any secret to staying friends with an ex?
It all depends on how the relationship ends.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys are respectful, if the relationship wasn't toxic, if it's just a realization that you don't want the same things, I think you can absolutely be good friends with your exes. Now, if the situation was toxic, then no, they died. You never think about them again. You make their little funeral in your bedroom and you lay them to rest.
Mm-hmm. What if like after a few years they come back and they're like, hey, I know I was like really toxic to you and I'm really sorry. I'd like to be friends. Have you ever had anything like that happen?
I have had things like that happen, and I think that moment is more for that person than it is for me. Just because you decided to get your shit together and get on BetterHelp.com and start texting your therapist locally today, that does not mean that you need to be re-included in my life. Like that can be done.
Lacey's story is about dudes, right? But she actually does identify as bisexual like Frances does. And all of this had me thinking, is staying friends with an ex so hard because a crush and like an attraction is so visceral?
That's a good question.
Okay, so we're going to take a hard right turn here and rewind about 2,600 years.
Sounds about right.
The ancient peoples practiced and experienced all sorts of facets of sexualities and expressions of love. This is nothing new. And the idea of a woman who loves another woman can go right back to the 7th century BCE. And you're on the Greek island of Lesbos and you're looking at a female poet called Sappho. I'm Marguerite Johnson. I'm Professor of Classics and Ancient History at the University of Newcastle in Australia.
Marguerite is a cultural historian who works primarily in the realm of the ancient Mediterranean.
And my focus is on sexualities and genders in the ancient Greek and Roman worlds. And also another part of my cultural inquiries is into the history of magic and witchcraft in the ancient world. I'm interested in the cultural beliefs and practices and everyday lives of the ancients. So I suppose that's what a cultural historian does.
You might be wondering why after 20 minutes of X Talk, we're now in a completely new place, but hold on, stay with us. We promise it will connect.
So Sappho, you may know, was a Greek lyric poet who was probably writing in about the 7th century BC.
We know very little that is definitive about her life. And while she's often been heralded as a lesbian poet, we have to keep in mind that the ancient Greeks and Romans really didn't have a handle on or an understanding of terminology that would define you as gay, straight, queer. That's really a modern concept.
Though the word lesbian is derived from the island where Sappho lived, as some of you may know.
The verb is lesbiazian. Now, that verb is translated in English as to behave like someone from Lesbos.
But behaving like someone from Lesbos is much saucier than just liking girls. The verb also means to perform fellatio.
So the ancient Greeks and the Romans thought the people from the island of Lesbos during Sappho's time were quite, what could I say, sexually free, and Sappho's just sort of put into that mix.
Over the years, the word lesbian has come to mean something much more specific, but looking back at Sappho's poetry,
which is sublime and sadly really fragmented. We only have one complete poem, which, considering it's thousands of years old, is not that bad, I don't think. But in her poetry, she doesn't come out and define herself or identify herself in any way. She just talks about being attracted to women and what we would call erotic rather than explicit. So in poem 1, which is her complete poem, she sends a prayer out to the goddess Aphrodite, who is the goddess of sexual desire, and she asks Aphrodite to cast a spell on this woman and make this woman fall in love with her.
It only takes a little bit of detective work, Marguerite says, when you read pieces like Poem 1, because she uses female pronouns.
And that's the key. So we know that she's writing about women a lot of the time, not because she says, I'm a lesbian and I want to have sex with you and blah, blah, blah. She'll just use the female pronoun. She talks about longing for women, the beautiful Greek noun pothos, which means a longing, a desire to satisfy desire, is in fragment 94, which she addresses to an unnamed woman. In fragment 96, she uses the word himeros, and that's also desire. So she has explicitly erotic vocabulary directed at women, but probably not in the overt way we would expect, far more subtle.
Here's how we think Frances and Bobby might perform fragment 96. She thought you were like a goddess revealed in splendor,
and found in your singing and deepest delight.
But now she is conspicuous among the Lydian women,
As, when the sun sets, the rose-fingered moon
subdues all the stars. She throws her light.
alike across the salty sea and over flowering fields.
A beautiful dew is poured down and the roses flourish.
The delicate chervil and the flowering clover.
And often as she wanders, remembering gentle Athos,
Desire gnaws in her slender breast, and pain eats out her heart.
Sappho.
So did we do it like Frances and Bobby? How do you feel about it?
I think we would impress any writer.
We are so afraid of slam poetry that now I think we need to take this show on the road.
We're taking it on the road.
I think she composed poetry. I don't think she actually wrote it down. She sung it, so it was easy to memorize. And, you're looking at the 7th century BCE. A lot of poetry was composed in an oral tradition, and then eventually it was written down.
Now, Frances being the type of poet that she is, she's maybe not like the Sappho kind of poet, but she is creating with the spoken word in mind.
And with Bobby as her muse, sure there's something to be said for the connection there.
There must be. I mean, how old is girl love and poetry?
Very, very old.
I like the impermanence of it, like the performance thing. I feel a bit sick when I think about it lasting forever.
It makes me think, can you imagine if Sappho knew that we're still reading her poetry thousands of years later?
One of the common expressions you find in Greek and Latin poets from antiquity is their understanding of true immortality is that they will be read at least for a generation. And so she has been read for so many generations, and she's inspired so many women. When women were looking for a voice to express female desire from, the Renaissance onwards, right up until second wave feminism at the beginning of the 1970s. So we have a cultural debt to her as well as a poetic debt to her. It's really interesting when you look at Sappho's poetry, because people say, well, it's universal. We all feel like this. And I think, love is universal and erotic desire. And Sappho describes sort of being set on fire with unrequited desire. And we've all experienced that, most of us probably, to varying degrees. So she speaks about the human condition and particularly unrequited desire. And the Greeks call that eros. And eros is a god, but eros is also a feeling you have where you literally feel like you're on fire and you're losing control if you can't actually satisfy the desire you have for a particular person. And yes, she does talk about universals, but I also think what she shows us is that every person in every cultural context throughout history has their own experiences, and love and desire, they are also individual and they mean something to the person. And so she is a person living in a moment in time, and that's her experience. And what she gives to us is she shares her personal experience and her personal voice. And we can universalize her, but I also like to see her and every great love poet as expressing something of their own, and the gift is they give it to us.
In this first episode of Conversations with Friends, we definitely see that desire and fiery feeling come into play.
The tension after their spoken word performance between Frances and Nick. Whew.
I'll craft you an email. It'll be full of compliments and be in complete sentences.
It won't require us to make eye contact.
Right.
Do you know the writer Tom Stoppard?
That's Tig Murphy. You'll hear more from him in a later episode, but when we talked to him, he told us about something called The Quickening.
He's a playwright. I think he wrote Shakespeare in Love. I think he'd be well known for that, I guess. But he's written lots of plays, and he has this thing in one of his plays. He calls it The Quickening. Have you heard of this?
Mm-mm.
So The Quickening is when you're in a relationship, but you walk into a room and you spot someone else and they spot you, and you have an understanding that you are one another's possibility, but you kill it because you're in a relationship. So that's called The Quickening, right? He coined that in this play. And I love that because I think that exists all the time. And I think that should always exist. And the thing about affairs, and what's really brilliant in this, in conversations between Nick and Frances, is that they can't, that quickening is too much to resist.
So what do we think? Is that moment the quickening?
It sounds like it is. And I think it's much more poetic a phrase to refer to a crush.
Yeah, I agree. It makes it feel more profound.
Yeah, it gives the experience the place and the word that it deserves. Because, that magnetic feeling that you have with it's what people would refer to as love at first sight, but it's not. It's just an infatuation with someone that you don't even know yet.
It's the quickening.
It's the quickening.
This show is hosted and produced by me, Maggie Boles.
And me, Noam Gadweiser.
It's written and edited by me with assistant editing by Noam. Our supervising producer is Ryan Tillotson with help from Tyler Nielsen, Frank Driscoll, Nick Bailey, and the entire Straw Hut team. Theme music is by Maggie Glass and Squarefish. And big thanks to Arya Bashai, Lauren Thorpe, Xavier Salas, and the Hulu team.